Bold and raw perspectives of local politics. Important information which impacts our community, nation, and world. Exposing truth, transparency, and getting to the heart of relevant issues that you just won't see in the clickbait media. And always keeping it real. It's the Michelle Tanner Podcast.
But I won't back down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an awesome episode of the Michelle Tanner Podcast. We have like a whole house full of powerhouse women today, some in studio, some joining us via Skype. So first of all, and I'm going to totally miss a lot of y'all's credentials because you all have so many credentials. So sitting right next to me, Alexis has been on the show before, but Alexis Ence, English professor, Republican Party State Central Committee member, Washington County Republican Women Vice Chair.
Yep.
So lots
good.
of amazing things that Alexis does. And then Haylee Caplin, sitting on the other side of me, is on for the first time. And she is the chair of the Washington County Republican Women, also on the State Central Committee for the Republican Party, and so many other amazing things. So thanks for coming on, Haylee.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes. And then joining us via Skype, we have Kim Coleman, who another powerhouse. She is the vice chair of the Utah Republican Party. She's also our national committee woman for the Republican Party for the state of Utah and former House of Representatives member for the state of Utah. Also, huge rap sheet. So thank you so much for coming on, Kim.
And the best hair in the SEC.
Yes, SEC as well. And then we also have the amazing Carolyn Phippen joining us today. I've been wanting to have Carolyn on for a long time, so this is awesome. Carolyn is the new chair of the Salt Lake County Republican Women's Group. She just ran for Senate, so a lot of people know her from that. She's been involved politically for a lot of years, great political strategist, activist, and so many other things. So welcome on, Carolyn. Do we have you on here too?
I'm here.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here. It has been an adventurous week.
Yes. And I want to get into that here in just a minute, because I was just out this week, actually out in Washington, D.C., and I find it ironic that these two things actually occurred during the same week,
Yes.
because every state gets two statues at our nation's capital. And our most recent statue is of Martha Hughes Cannon, who, talk about trailblazer for women. First woman to vote in the entire United States. First female state senator in the entire United States. A physician, medical doctor back when it wasn't common for women to be doctors. So this statue was being dedicated to her, which actually I wasn't technically invited to this. This is another kind of story on its own, but it actually kind of ties into this because there's this club in the state of Utah. There's this elitist club, I will call it. And all of the other females on the St. George City Council, along with our mayor, all received invitations to go to this unveiling in Washington, D.C. Everyone except for me. And so, too, I'm going to give our mayor, Randall, a lot of credit right here, because she made sure that I was included, even though there were several events in Washington, D.C. that they purposefully excluded me from. And by they, I mean John Curtis's people working for him, because they admitted that they purposefully excluded me from being invited to some of these events. So, as I was out there, and there are a lot of amazing people out there, so I'm not saying that, everyone is in this, quote, elitist group, elitist club, but it made me think about, as I'm seeing a man keep you guys out of your own women's club here in the state of Utah, which we'll get into those details in just a second. But, they have this club of like 10 members that they're apparently really exclusive because they don't want anybody else to join. I'm like, is this just that Utah elitist club going on that like we on the grassroots level, the actual people who I feel like represent most of everyday Utahns and women here, like we can't be included in this? So props to you guys and
Yes.
Carolyn and Kim especially. I want to get into what happened this week. Let's first, Sean, will you show the video of this meeting that occurred this week?
I've watched you do that. I've watched you touch women. We need to go find the manager. I've watched you do it.
On the bylaws and organization as it stands. And so it does not require.
But to change bylaws, you have to have a vote
It's
and a
not,
recording of the minutes.
ma'am, nobody changed the bylaws.
So then how can one person pay for their dues at the end of when their accounts for the year, one person pay and it's like, oh, now it's retro.
Well, if you want to come in and sit down and participate in the meeting, I'm only going to read this once. I'm losing my voice already trying to explain to a whole lot of people what's going on and why, but also most people don't really want to listen. They want a certain outcome that is not going to happen today. So with that, there we are. Take us to court. I'm prepared for this case.
Who? Who's us?
The women's
Are you a woman?
Republican Club of
Are you a woman? Are you part of the? Are you a woman and a part of this club? Whoa! Wait a minute. Yes, it does. Who are we taking to court? If we're taking to court women.
No, you would take the club.
Oh, and are you part of the club?
If you're on the list, then you can be credentialed. Please hurry, though, because we need. Yeah, so we need to check with this one. We need to see if. Okay, well, yeah, but I can't just accept this.
Good. How are you doing? This is insane.
All right. So
You ready?
Carolyn and Kim were both there. Will one of you please explain what we just saw?
Yeah. So let's be clear on there are two groups of people in this restaurant. There's almost 100 people on one side, 100 women who were prevented from entering the club, where there were about 15 or 20 of us actual members of the club. And so when you have this man telling people what he wants to interpret the bylaws to be, that belongs to the 20 women who are the members of the club. And so what you see there is we have been working for months to get people interested in this club and get them recruited to come. And Carolyn can talk a little bit about that too. But about a year ago, we started trying to generate interest in the club. The club is part of a National Federation of Republican Women. It requires 10 members to retain its charter. And there is a state organization as well, a national state, and then these local clubs, which you all are also involved in that in southern Utah. But as I talked to the state leadership, they indicated that this club was really, really floundering, that year after year, they have to lean in and push to make sure that we get our 10 members so that we can retain the charter. So really needs some help. And the club has been very, it's not been, it hasn't had anything like this ever happen. The importance of this club is it is a legacy in our state. It is the oldest, longest running Republican women's club in the nation. We far predate this National Federation of all the clubs, when at some point we all got together and said, let's kind of a little bit. But we are celebrating 125 years this year. It's incredible. We were united as Republican women, active in the civic and political space well before we could even vote. So this club is very symbolic of Republican women and conservative women in this space. So we just wanted to make sure this club has revitalized breath into this club. Carolyn, we reached out to her weeks ago and asked if she would be willing to step in and breathe that fire into the club. And We have never in 125 years had guests turn away. We've never denied people membership. So people have been trying to pay their dues, become a member of the club, when all of a sudden they start finding that their dues are being refunded. And when they go to the Venmo for the state club and try to join, they would hit rejection notices. And ultimately, within 24, 48 hours of our election, the page was even down. And so there's been a concerted effort and apparently a coordinated effort with the state club to stop this revitalization of women. There are only really two requirements to join the club, and that is that you are a Republican woman and you pay your dues. And for 125 years, people have shown up, paid dues, and had full rights and benefits the minute they lay their money down. And this is Republican women. All 100 people who were barred met eligibility requirements and were prohibited from attending. But real quick, what you see of the man outside the door got worse, far worse on the inside. He shut people down. He interrupted women. He called women out of order who were rightly asking about his authority to take over our meeting. And there were two state officers or officers sent by the state club to come run the election portion of our meeting. But people were rightly raising points of order on, who gave you the chair, and we should be able to elect our own chair, things that are legitimate and common parliamentary procedures. Jerry, the man who took over our meeting, called them all out of order and said there are no rules of order governing the club or the meeting. And then he would proceed to call people out of order. It was very hard for a lot of these women. A lot of these women, they don't experience contention in their meetings. They've never had this experience of someone trying to, a coup of our meeting. But the disrespect, the absolute rudeness that they were shown in a club that has always been congenial for 125 years. Motions were made to offer the prayer and the pledge, another 125-year tradition, were called out of order, were denied. And basically what happened was the women didn't take it, the members didn't take it. We maintained our ground, and we did not let them take over our meeting up to the point where they decided it was futile and they walked away, and we continued our meeting, which included the election of Carolyn Phippen as our new person, and inviting and welcoming 90 plus new members.
That's
And
incredible.
I think
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's important to note that, so I had received a call earlier in the week, last week, telling me that we would not be allowed in, we would not be allowed to join. My dues were refunded to me. And so we made a decision so that it didn't become a clash, that we just hire our own parliamentarian to ensure, because they were violating all their own rules days before the election even took place. And we did not want there to be an issue. We didn't want people to be so frustrated that they stormed out or yelled or something worse take place. So we had a parliamentarian there, and they refused to allow him into the meeting as well, and said that this other man who was not a certified parliamentarian would be the parliamentarian, and the members of the club who are rightly granted the privilege of having their own floor parliamentarian if they choose to do so. They were denied that right. But Kim still worked with him while he was out with the rest of us who weren't allowed in. My point just being, to the point that Kim made, we wanted nothing to be antagonistic here. We wanted nothing to be angry. We did not want this to be divisive. The entire point of this was to have a unifying force in a county that is quickly turning blue, a unifying force of conservative and other Republican, let's just say a unifying force of Republican women to work together and make a difference in this county in a way that is not currently being done. And we were not only denied that opportunity until we outsmarted them, but we were presented as the aggressors when nothing about that, from our perspective, there was no aggression. There was no fighting.
Let me give an example of that. The visitors, and Jerry, the parliamentarian guy, they called the police on us, on our club members. I don't know how much more offensive they could have been, but then to call law enforcement to shut the lawful members down. People who are not members of our club, who showed up, disrupted our club, were extremely rude to our members, called the cops. But here's what happened, is our server, this is secondhand, so I have to qualify that this is secondhand. But I'm told that our server went to the police officer and said, look, I serve these ladies every month. These are my regular customers. Look at them, look at how they're behaving. But there's these 3 people in the front that are causing the trouble. And they're the ones who called you, and they want my regular customers removed. And so the police officer left. We had a similar experience with the manager. The head manager got called out, and the server said the same thing. The manager, once the troublemakers once they packed up their stuff and left, then the manager gave us permission to go ahead and continue our meeting, knowing that we were not the antagonizers there. We were trying to have an orderly meeting, and they usurped the order of the meeting. They had a microphone so that we had soft-spoken women, senior women, trying to raise points of order, trying to say, can we please have a prayer? Like, there's maybe a good time to have a prayer at this moment. Nope, you're out of order, and you are going to sit there and listen to me read the thing I brought to read to you, and then I'll entertain any comments afterwards. This man who barked over these women who are peacefully assembled in a club of women. It was so outrageous.
Wow, what an experience. So who was running this club before? I want to just make that clear, because there was apparently only maybe like 10 members or regular attendees before. Was this Jerry person? Was that the chair who's been supposedly running the club for the last year? Who's actually been running this thing?
So the president of the club prior to my election was Lori Stringham, who's on the Salt Lake County Council. She was back in Washington, D.C. as well to celebrate women's suffrage while we were being denied the right to vote by a man. But
ironic.
Anyway, and this was a concerted effort by a number of those women who were in DC. I know that for a fact, because like you, Michelle, there were plenty of women who were there who saw and heard things that were taking place. And the phone call that I received about this early in the week, I received it from somebody who was in Washington, D.C. at the time. And I know that this was an effort to make sure that control was retained by whomever. There was somebody, Sylvia Anderson, had been asked. She told me that she was asked by Lori, I think, to run for president, and she ended up storming out when the body voted against motions that were being made by her and Jerry and some of the other people there who were not members of the club, who were attempting to take over the club.
They didn't make any motions. Sylvia didn't make any motions. It was really the regular members who are frequently in attendance. Sylvia was pretty quiet, I think. I don't know if she knew.
Right, but I don't know that she expected that. She left with the others, though, is what I'm saying.
Well, and you have to ask yourself, for a club that has been floundering for several years now, is barely meeting the minimum requirement to retain the charter, boy, some people took an interest instantly in this club. And that's the question to start asking is, what did we wake up just because we said, hey, we're going to bring 100 women, that someone would have preferred? Like, who is it out there that would prefer a floundering club hanging by a thread, a legacy club of barely 10 women and a man, and versus 100 women ready to roll up their sleeves? And these weren't any particular factions of our party, of kind of the people who show up to stuff. I mean, we have been working on, I asked my hairdresser, speaking of the hairdresser, Cindy, you're so passionate about our government. You're so passionate about faith, family, and freedom. How would you like to come to a lunch meeting that we have once a month? Meet some really great patriot women. And it's an opportunity for women to sort of just a place they can go to just start talking about politics or start talking about civic issues. And sometimes, it's a very congenial social space to come in and just be involved at that level. We're not asking you to run for public office yet, but come have lunch. And this was such a bad look for, I think, the state organization that came in and did this to people. And so what I want to make sure is that I want other women to know, I want every Republican woman in the state to know this is an outlying event. I don't know of anything that's ever happened like this in 125 years. These clubs are fun. They're a great social venue. They're not high pressure politics. We get together for our club in Salt Lake County. It's at a hamburger restaurant. And, so it's affordable for a lot of people, but it really is just a great social atmosphere. And I feel so sick about what some unknown people decided they wanted to do. It was unacceptable that 100 new people could join this club, and they would prefer to stay with the 10 floundering membership.
Well, and it's mind-blowing that there's still people like that are clearly so out of touch with what's going on in this country. I mean, did they miss the sweeping victory of Donald Trump across every single demographic? Did they miss that across the aisle, this is a nonpartisan issue where we want to protect women's spaces? That's not something that's unique even to the Republican Party. So it's really interesting that there was still this handful of people in Salt Lake County trying to hold on to some dwindling power that they're clearly severely outnumbered. But Alexis, Haylee, feel free to chime in too.
Yeah, I mean,
people didn't care about this club before now. They would have been members. They just showed up. And by the way, Salt Lake County turned slightly, but nevertheless turned more red this last election.
All right.
Yes, we like to hear that.
No, I was just thinking, I mean, any organization would want to grow their numbers and would want to get more people involved. And we're such a red state, so why would we not want more women involved, Republican women? And like you said, there's minimum requirements. And for us, like, our motto is be involved, be united, be informed. We come together, we cover a lot of different topics. It's a great way to meet people with your similar beliefs and, values. And so it's sad for me to see that happening because, wow, you guys had 100 people show up. That's amazing. So hopefully, moving forward, it can be great. We've been kind of lonely down here in Washington County. The other clubs in the state have struggled. And it's like, come on, guys, we know you've got the numbers up there. So, yeah, good job.
We do.
True.
We do have the numbers up here.
The general election, I feel like, really gave this mandate for conservative leadership. I really feel like we saw that. And so you take a look at an event like this where Carolyn has over 100 women showing up to support her. Is that not a mandate for we want this kind of conservative leadership here in Salt Lake County, in a county that clearly, as we've heard from these ladies, is struggling? I mean, I can't understand wanting to get in the way of a movement like that.
Yeah. And can I just say thank you so much, Carolyn, for being willing to
Yes.
step into that position, because so much of what goes on in Salt Lake County has this huge ripple effect and impact across the rest of the state. So us Southern Utah gals down here who are, we like to think we're in the reddest part of the state down here.
Yes.
We don't want to see the rest of the state do what's happening to Salt Lake. But I mean, I think that we are still the majority in Salt Lake, even though that's not been reflected lately. So thank you for taking back what we know are our values here in Utah.
Right.
Right. And I think so much of it is that when you do not have strong, principled leadership, you end up with no excitement, no, as you talked about, the mandate that has come from people getting really excited about actual policy discussions. Who would have thought, right? But when you don't have that at a state level, at a county level, when you have weakness, people don't get excited. We lost in a number of our countywide races a lot of Republican support in some of these races where Democrats won where they never should have won, where we were winning. We had people voting Republican, and stepping away on some of these races. And I think it's because they did not see strong conservative leadership. And I had a woman who ran and lost reach out to me and say she thinks that a strong conservative women's organization could have made a really big difference in her race. And I agree with her. You look at what happened in Florida when Ron DeSantis started leading with backbone. That state, I was born and raised in New York. Florida is just New York's backyard. We consider it our vacation spot, okay? And everyone from New York just retires there. So I know the makeup of that state to a great degree. And I'm exaggerating a little, but only a little. And that's a state that has been such a swing state for so many years, or very close to it. And then you had Ron DeSantis step up. He just barely won his first election. Step up and lead with power and authority from a side of principled conservatism and constitutionalism. And look at what happened. They just are sweeping areas that nobody ever thought would go Republican. That is the kind of thing that we need to see in Utah. And that is, I think, what people are starting to realize is possible. But too often we look to the federal government. We are conditioned to look as high as we can to solve our problems for us. And we're conditioned to do that by government that wants us to do that, and by organizations that receive their power and their funding from Washington, D.C. And we have got to break that and realize that, yes, those things matter, but the on the ground works matter just as much. And if we can do things like one little club here, one little organization here, look at that. So I was told by somebody today that they counted 130 people there. We didn't even vote until people had been there for 2 hours, and we still had 90 new members. And that's on top of the people who were denied entrance, who had paid earlier in the year, but they didn't show up on the magical list that Jerry had. Jerry had a list. It didn't matter if you had proof. You could have a cleared check, but if you were not on his list, you were not admitted into that meeting. So we had 90 new members and 10, 20, 30, or 40 people who had left because they'd already been there an hour or 2 hours. I have been contacted, and all of us have been contacted by people all over the state. And I even had someone from Missouri, a man, say, I'm an associate member of the Republican Women's Club in my area. Can I join yours as an associate member as well?
That's awesome.
I love it.
And yes, you can pay us. Yes, you can.
Well, and I want to go back to that meeting for just a second, because here, you have this man who is denying you access, who clearly has this preset list and, agenda they're trying to follow to maintain this power. So obviously, this dude's like 3 times your guys' size. Like, it's not like you're going to physically force your way in. How did you outsmart this coup that was taking place?
Okay. Well,
go ahead, Kim.
So what we did was, when you are a member, you have a right to know the membership list. You know, when we have conventions and things like that, there's credentialing. There is some verification process of members. They would not share that with us. So again, Jerry and the two state officers were the keepers of the list, and the body gets to accept that, reject that, amend that. I mean, you have full authority as the membership to determine its membership. And we weren't even allowed to see that. And at one point, there were so many points of order raised. And at one point, I just turned to my sisters in the club and said, hey, who would support? And then we get shut down. Point of order, there's no order. Who would support just us electing a quick chair pro tem and move on with our meeting? And the person from the state yells across the room and says, Kim Coleman, you're dismissed. Well, the whole room says, no, that's not going to happen. That's when they got frustrated. So they took the kind of power that you never, ever have in a meeting as a chair, as a parliamentarian. You sure as heck don't have it as a non-member. And then trying to throw our people out, calling the police. We just maintained. This is our meeting. You're not going to take it, until they got frustrated and left, packed up, and they vacated, and our meeting kept going. So the members, as is their right, then again put a chair pro tem, a temporary chair in place to go ahead and conduct the rest of the meeting. Sometimes it's simply outlasting. Carolyn said, we outsmarted. Yeah, maybe. So I would say yes, but some of it's just outlasting. People want to wear you down, and we can't be worn down. And the last 4 years have shown that as well. Nationally, we just have to stay strong, and as citizens, as patriots, as women, and keep raising our voice. So bringing Carolyn in, I'm not sure if she has the kind of backbone that we're talking about.
Oh, we know she does.
Nudge Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, could you be a little bit more strong in your position? So we're going to have a great, as a member, I'm so excited to have Carolyn come and take over this club, lead this club in a new direction.
I also think it was really important that we had hired a parliamentarian, because he was able to certify at the end of the meeting that everything had been done according to the bylaws, the rules, and in proper order. And he is prepared a report that we can now submit to national and state, so that we will be recognized by them as a legitimate organization, that election took place in a legitimate manner. When we were trying to get in, and Kim made it in, they had a process set up where Jerry, who is not a certified parliamentarian, had a parliamentarian's report. And he apparently just sat down when everybody got into the room and wanted to read his parliamentarian's report. And it was his interpretation.
It was a multi-page opinion.
It was an opinion that did not come from a certified parliamentarian, and in fact conflicted with what the certified parliamentarian had ruled. So it's now been taken down. It was posted on the club's Facebook page I think after that, like maybe that evening after the meeting. It's now been taken down as far as I can see. I can't find it up there again, which tells me they understand the errors that were in that report, and what his opinion, I'll call it an opinion because that's what it was. What his opinion would have done is invalidate our ability to join the club, to vote. And it was just an incorrect opinion. He is not a certified parliamentarian. So even had we, like Kim said, outlasted them and gone forward with what we did, if we had not followed proper order and had somebody who knows better there to explain it during, ensuring that we were following the rules, and then afterward explain it in writing so that we can present that to those bodies that we're a part of, to assure them that everything was done and that proper process was followed. Had we not done that, I think we could still be in trouble now.
So I think that it's helpful that we did have a credentialed parliamentarian, but most of us in the room already knew our rights. And so it was nice to have him whisper, what is allowed by the bylaws. But we all know this is a human nature thing, that the body, like we, the people, and we, the members of a private association, we have certain rights within our membership. We pay dues that guarantees us rights to that organization. And so a lot of us on this call right here, sometimes we get frustrated with the minutia and the long and drawn out process that is parliamentary procedure, rules of order. We just got a real big reminder why we do go by some set of rules of order. Because if you don't, somebody's going to come in and mistreat you, like we saw Thursday. But we were able to stand on basic parliamentary rules of order that is generally accepted, would have been accepted in any courtroom in this country. And so we are absolutely on firm ground with all of that, with the help of the parliamentarian. But I would say, everybody, next time you're frustrated with some detail of some, parliamentary procedure, this is why. It is to protect the members from this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just such a great example of how we do win. How do we further our causes? It's not by violence. It's not by aggression. It is by doing exactly what you ladies proved here. It's by being strategic. It's planning. It's showing up. It's hard work. It's, having those processes in place is just really key to how we win and further our cause.
Right. Speaking of the aggression, I talked to Kim a little bit about this, so I'm hoping she'll touch on it here. We've talked a lot about the process and that sort of thing, but just as a woman and as women who were there experiencing this man who is like 3 times your size, right? And Kim's not, she won't back down from a fight, I'm sure. But what was that like? And what do you probably could speak for the other women in the room as well, how they were feeling, and how they felt being treated by this man this way.
This is interesting. It actually took me, a day or so after to kind of process what I was still feeling that was kind of out there. Jerry is a member of the club. At whatever point Jerry joined the club, Jerry has come to lunch, however many months a year. It was very different when Jerry took on the bouncer role. Mm-hmm. And there is a difference when Jerry blocked the space versus one of the 2 state ladies that came in who blocked the space. It's much more intimidating. I mean, they don't intimidate me, the ladies, because they're about my size. I'm probably bigger than both of them, and Jerry's probably only twice my size, but 3 times the size of Carolyn. There is a factor when you know that it is a physical man that is blocking you from a place you're entitled to be versus someone who's your size or smaller. But even going inside the room and the fact that even audibly, the women were overpowered. And that can be very intimidating. And to have loud frequencies, deep frequencies, lash across the room, bark at a woman who is trying to just raise her hand and say, can we just have a prayer? It really did affect the dynamic in ways that maybe I wasn't expecting and maybe surprised me. We sometimes talk about a lot about physical competition, about safety in women's spaces. What I observed for the first time that I really kind of put together in my head is maybe sometimes it's more than that. Mm-hmm. That there was an inequity in the balance of accessibility of a meeting where a man with a microphone could overpower women's voices without a microphone. don't think I ever really thought through that dynamic until I saw it happen, and I felt bad for the women who clearly were intimidated and were afraid to speak up. It was a unique form of bullying that I had not ever experienced.
It's such a difference too from because we have a lot of male members in our club, associate members, but they treat us with such respect, and they're non-voting members. We welcome men, and some people bring their spouses, but they know they're non-voting members. They come, they support, they love to hear the speakers, but they're not intimidating like Kim mentioned. And so clearly there needs to be very specific in the bylaws that biological males are non-voting. We welcome biological males, but the women should have the voice. The body should be able to know that they are going to have their voice heard.
Right. And I think it's important to note that it's not like
Well, to be clear, at times.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, to be clear, Jerry was not the only one. There were two other, actors that worked to suppress our membership, but Jerry had an impact.
3 men?
3.
All men?
There were 3 men. Yes.
No. 2.
Oh.
2 were women from the state federation.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is it's not like we're a bunch of just feminists sitting around and man haters. And no, actually, everybody I know, all the Republican women I know anyway, we equally value men. And like Haylee said, there's a lot of associate men who come to the Washington County Republican women's group, and they're a great support. But yeah, if this is a women's group, I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory, but I guess not for everyone these days.
You think so? Carolyn, I watched a little bit of your message, and I think, didn't they say that there were 3 men who were huddled in a corner trying to decide if you could speak? Is that right?
Yeah, so that was, and Kathleen was very upset by the fact that it was 3 men, but that included our parliamentarian.
Okay.
I take no offense to that, and I actually told her that prior, but that really, really bothered her when she saw those 3 men huddling, and from there, then things proceeded. But I do think that it was helpful, again, that we had another big man. Kirby is not a short guy. Right. He's a tall guy. And I mean, maybe everyone's tall for me, but
yes, everyone is tall for you.
And he was there with the other 2 men, and I don't know what that conversation was, and I actually didn't even see that huddle, but that really set off Kathleen, that here we as women were being kept out of our meeting. And even the fact, I think it was helpful that we had him there, and I know it was, and that he had that conversation with them. But the fact that we had to have a man have that conversation with them in order to move things forward was very disturbing to her.
Yeah.
What it was our Kirby parliamentarian, Jerry, and then the third person, the state federation sent him in to act as a sergeant at arms. And typically, sergeant at arms would come from your own membership. Your parliamentarian would first come from your own membership. So we had these outsiders come in and then, position 1 man, 2 other women to shut us down. So the optics of that are horrendous. And yeah.
And, I'll tell you, even the other women who were there, I had a lot of complaints. I know you did as well, Kim, about how they were treated and spoken to by these 2 other women who, unfortunately, I don't know that I know the full story, but from what I was told, they were shoved into this situation and nobody gave them a heads up about what was going to happen, because the state was well aware. They called me. I told them we were still coming. We would be in attendance and we would see how things played out. And of course, then we started strategizing once we knew that they were going to not allow us in. But the state federation was well aware that we would still be there. And what I was told, whether this is true or not, I haven't verified, but what I was told is that these people who were sent in to run the election were not informed. They were told 10 to 15 people will show up and vote.
So let me throw in a quick technical thing, is we are talking about 100 women, and some people might think, oh, well, 100 women who show up the day of an election, maybe they could have pause for that. But understand, all of our votes took place with our actual members who were members previous to this week. And all the motions carried, all the actions that we took. For Carolyn had shown up to previous meetings, but was not provided a way to pay her dues, and was instructed to show up in December with a checkbook or cash. And so, and it was very well known among the state leaders and the local club that Carolyn was going to run for a position. So it really, the fact that this was not honored, that women were pushed off and told that they would be given a way to pay dues in December when they show up to the December annual meeting with elections, they could do that. Then the rug was pulled out and Carolyn was not allowed. So, one of the motions that our whole body made was to start allowing these women to go ahead and pay their dues that day. But all of this stuff happened without, most of this stuff happened without the 100 people outside. These were actual members. And that's how we know, we were by the book on everything. So, very intentional, it appears to be a coordinated effort to intentionally restrict Carolyn from joining, and then others.
Well, and
you just have to ask yourself why.
I love that exactly. And I love that you pointed out that is a form of bullying. This culture, this elitist mentality that, think they run our state. And in some ways they do run our state. But thankfully, we have people like all of us in the room and, Carolyn and Kim, who are willing to step up and say, try to bully me all day long. I'm going to outsmart you. And that's exactly what you ladies did, because, the opposition will try to say, oh, look how mean you all are being to a transgender individual. And it's like, no, you pointed out that this Jerry has been to multiple meetings. I doubt anyone really said a whole lot until Jerry was actually there trying to alter an election and election interference and physically keep people out of a room and silencing women. And so, it has nothing to do with that until, if you start bullying us, you bet we're going to step up and we are going to defend our rights.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the question that we have is the who, who was so fixated and determined to interfere with this election, and then the big why. It's always the big why. And
do we know who's behind the scenes? Can we name some names? Who's like truly behind the scenes on this?
Yeah, who's the puppet
master?
We know?
I don't know.
I don't know that we know.
I mean, we do know there was a presence of the state.
And by state, do we need like Deidre or
the state federation?
State club,
UFRW.
Okay.
Haley knows more about that than even we do. So.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, as you were saying, that your story now has gone national, on Twitter, on different media sources, and this conversation is turning. And through this election, the gender issue has come up, and I feel like we're making waves that way. We're turning it where people are like, we need common sense back. We need to, this isn't, like you said, bullying.
Yeah.
On the women to the transgender.
Right. And I've had Jamie Mitchell on, who is a transgender, and I really like Jamie. Jamie's a Republican. I invited Jamie to a Republican function we had down here. Jamie showed up. But that's not really what we're talking about here. And that's what I want to make clear. We're not targeting, one person over another. We love everyone. I think I can speak for everyone here. Yeah. But at the end of the day, biology is biology. Facts are facts. Truth is truth. And at the end of the day, if we are all seeking truth, we don't need to be offended by anything or anyone, because that's what we should be seeking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that allowed this to happen, I was reading this book recently and they talked about the fact that, and think about this will blow your mind. After the advent of the internet In 2001, they took a look at the amount of information and data that was produced in 2001. It was 2 times the amount of data produced up until 2001, all the way back to the beginning of human history. 2 times the amount of information and data in 1 year with the internet. And it's significantly more than that now, right? And I think that what is happening, you said something, Michelle, a while ago about there are people in positions of power who do not understand what's happening. They don't understand how the world is shifting, how everything is changing, how the people are becoming empowered in a way that they have never been empowered before. And that is 100% a result of their inability at this point in time to control the flow of information. And that is what allowed us. We did what we did. We were able to gather people because we could communicate with people through the internet. But even that, they would have beaten us if they could have then come out, controlled the media sources, and put out stories about how we were the aggressors and we were there causing problems and we are the rabble rousers and the troublemakers. The people would not have been supportive of what we were doing. The fact that we could on our own go to the new media, X. It was X. I was told that Facebook was removing comments and posts.
Wow.
X was not. And there was even somebody who reached out to me the next day on X. She had seen it. She lives in Washington State. She ran for Congress up there. She had seen it go down here. And when she saw this in real time while we were in that meeting, she called the president of the National Federation that's over all of us, right? And had a conversation with her about what was occurring. Those kinds of things and the ability that we had to not allow a controlled narrative to be the story is what allowed this to actually, it's what allowed the election to stand.
And Michelle Tanner podcasts.
This is
Yes. Let me get a quick plug for that real quick, because some of you may know, but back in, let's see, it was probably May. It was before the primary election. I had done an episode talking about Spencer Cox and why I was not one who booed, I will say, at the convention. That's not really my style, but I laid out the reasons why delegates were frustrated and why they did feel the need to boo. And the next day, my platform was completely removed from YouTube. I, up to that point, had started to gain quite a bit of momentum and, people listening in for especially Utah and Southern Utah politics. And so had to start over after that happened. And then, had a several month off period. And so we're just kind of getting back up and going. So please, if you find this information enlightening, I don't get paid to do this. I go out of my way to do this because I think it is so vital that we have sources, like Carolyn said, for information that's from the source. These ladies were there. Carolyn is the new president. Listen to it from the source, not the clickbait media, not the twisted narrative propaganda that they will put out there. They likely will, even though we're getting ahead of it, which is great. There still will be that false narrative out there. And so please share, subscribe. It doesn't have to just be my podcast, but other information sources like this, because it really does help to get important information out there.
I experienced the same thing. Same thing.
Interesting.
So a lot of us have.
Yeah. We're not alone.
But we're getting rid of the cancel culture, right?
Amen.
God, Elon Musk.
Yes.
Goodness.
Well, all of you ladies give me so much hope. We're just under an hour, so we'll wrap up here. Maybe let's just go through each of you real quick and any final thoughts you have and where people can keep in contact with you or follow you as well. Let's go Alexis, Haylee, Kim, and then Carolyn.
I don't have anywhere for you to follow me. Maybe Facebook.
Alexis,
I'm good. I think final thoughts are for me. It just came down to let's just be good humans. It's any person, any man, any way bullying others. Don't do that. At the end of the day, regardless of differences in politics, regardless of differences in beliefs, however passionate those are, it doesn't justify the way that these women were treated. And I hope that people are going to rally for this Women's Republican Club of Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Because they should rally behind these ladies who fought back, who made sure that they did their elections in proper order. They made sure that they were treated fairly. And that was not an easy position to be in. So I hope we're going to see people rally for them. That's my hope.
Amen. Haylee?
Perfect. Yeah, I would just say, well, first of all, thank you for having me today. It's been fun. All these ladies I highly respect. So, but as far as us, our next luncheon is January 9th. We meet monthly, and our January luncheon is going to have our Utah GOP chairman, Rob Axon, on. So he's a great speaker. He can give us some of the inside scoop on this next year with the party. Works closely with Kim. So we'd love to have you if you want to join us 11:30 at the Abbey Inn on Bluff Street for January 9th. And I just applaud these ladies' courage because we need more of us to speak up and do the right thing, as you've mentioned, Michelle. So thank you, and we look forward to collaborating with our Salt Lake ladies up there.
Yes, we do.
And you both do such a good job, by the way, at running the Washington County Republican Women's Group. I got to admit, I was a little hesitant to join at first because I'm not a women's group person. I grew up with 6 older brothers. I'm like, what's the difference? Like, why are we just having women? But I was really glad to see, as I've attended more of the events, that there's a lot of men there. It's not this men versus women thing at all.
Right.
And I am an official member now. So you ladies do an amazing job.
Yeah, we'd love to have you as members.
you.
So.
Yes. All right, Kim.
Okay, so if you want to find out what I'm doing on the national RNC, that's kimfcoleman.com. And also that's my X handle. So please follow and connect so we can keep building.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. All right, Carolyn, take us away.
Okay. I want to make one last point. Although let me say this. Yes, the Washington County Republican Women's Group is amazing. You guys hosted a wonderful debate when I was running for Senate, and it was so fun. I think it was our first one. But let me say this, and I think we all need to remember this. There were women who showed up in support of new leadership, new conservative leadership on Thursday, who do not like each other. We are all in the trenches in politics, and sometimes we offend people or they offend us, or we just don't like their politics as much as we like our own. And guess what? They all showed up. And they worked together to make sure that we pushed forward a change that would allow us to educate, to make a difference in Salt Lake County, and start to turn this county red in a good way and in a conservative way. So swallow your pride, shut up and stop calling each other names, and let's get to work.
I love that, Carolyn. So well said. I couldn't have said that better because it's so true. We are never going to align with someone 100%. And I'm so tired of people trying to cancel people, especially those who 90% of the time, they're actually aligned. So I always appreciate, I think you're really good at that, Carolyn. And I always like your reminder posts. You put one out the other day that I'm like, ooh, that's so good. So make sure y'all are following Carolyn Phippen as well. She is awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Carolyn Phippen, Carolyn, and my last name is Phippen. You can find me on X. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook.
Amazing, ladies. Well, thank you all. Let's do it again. And especially when you get down here to Washington County, we'll have to have a party in the studio with all of us. But
yes.
Thanks for sharing your experience. Great. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for being a part of the Michelle Tanner Podcast. Please follow, subscribe, and share. And always remember to keep exposing truth.
But I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.